Let's move on to turn 2 of scenario 169 of the Hakaa Paalle Advanced Squad Leader module. In the first turn, the Soviets of the first wave were able to move without suffering the effects of being stray and moved without any complications towards the Finnish positions. Some of these units advanced to positions within the line of sight of hidden Finnish units, 4 hexes away, which preferred not to fire on the Soviets because they would lose their hidden and concealed status, preferring to wait for the enemy to get closer before firing. The possibility of losing their hidden status led the Finns to choose not to attempt to launch starshells, which in addition to exposing their units, if successful, could light the path of the Soviets, eliminating the possibility of the enemy getting stray. At this point, the Soviets will prepare the entry of the second wave into the scenario. This wave will be formed, as we saw previously, by 3 combat aerosans equipped with anti-aircraft machine guns, 4 firepower, 8 hexes range, 6 first-line squads 5 to 7, which can be divided into 2 half squads, without the need for a leader or test check, as long as they enter the scenario transported by the transport aerosans. At this point the Soviets have the first doubt, which is the convenience of transforming the squads into half squads, because from the moment these units enter the scenario transported by the aerosans they lose the cloaking markers, losing the advantages related to this marker, among which we highlight the possibility of being able to use 6 movement factors. Furthermore, one of the victory conditions requires that the Finns do not win 18 or more victory points, and the transport aerosans count as 3 victory points, 1 aerosan plus 2 from the crew if this crew is eliminated, while the combat aerosans are worth 4 victory points, 1 aerosan plus 1 main armament plus 2 from the crew. These aerosans are unarmored or have low armor, and can be destroyed even by infantry fire, which makes their use in the vicinity of enemy forces risky. If the Soviets lose the 3 combat aerosans, 12 victory points, and 3 transport aerosans, 6 victory points, they will lose the battle, even without having suffered any infantry casualties. In this way, the combat aerosans will advance cautiously through the northern sector of map 26, while the transport aerosans without troops transported will enter this same sector but will remain away from the combat area. The Soviets choose to reformulate the infantry in this second wave, and half of the half squads are reconstituted into squads and will use the skis to advance, maintaining the cloaking marker, and will enter the map at the rear of the first wave. The second half will lose the cloaking marker, whose markers will be available to be used as dummies, and will enter transported by transport aerosans through the northern sector of map 28, keeping the cloaking marker. The passengers and raiders of an aerosan are characterized by the placement of the units on the aerosan marker. Once the second wave of Soviet attack has been deployed, we go to Rally Phase Soviet Turn 2. Wind Change 8, No Wind Change. Prep Fire Phase. At this point, Soviet units that have vision over enemy units, it is not necessary for them to be known could launch starshells to light their way, avoiding the effect of misdirection. They decide not to perform this activity because, by moving, without assault movement, within the enemy's field of vision, they may lose the cloaking marker and the advantage of being able to move using 6 movement factors in a scenario of only 6 turns, and, right or wrong, they choose not to try to launch starshells. Movement phase. Initially, the units transported by the Aerosans will be moved on map 28. From the moment they enter the first hex, with the expenditure of 2 movement factors, the Aerosan will be exposed to the effects of being stray and must roll dice to assess its occurrence. After moving for 4 hexes, the Aerosan strays, and the next roll of dice will determine the direction, colored die, and whether the involuntary fire effect will occur, which will occur if the dice result is a double. 6-1. This Aerosan will move in the direction corresponding to the number 6 until its movement points are exhausted. The second Aerosan moves and, like the previous vehicle, strays when entering the 4th hex. This Aerosan will spend all its movement points in the direction corresponding to the result of the one on the colored die. The third Aerosan strays as soon as it enters the board and will use all its movement points in the direction corresponding to the number 6 colored die. Upon entering hex 27L4, this Aerosan enters the line of sight of the Finns in hex 27K8 within night range (NVR), losing its concealment marker. In this hex, it will suffer an attack from the Finns with 5 firepower from the squad and 1 firepower from the anti-tank rifle, firepower equivalent in high explosives of the anti-tank rifle. The Aerosan that lost its concealment marker suffers an attack with 6 firepower, while the transported units, raiders and passengers, will be attacked with 2 firepower for keeping their concealment markers. The modifiers will be -2, FFMO and FFNAM, +1 relative to the hindrance of the night condition. The Finnish units will lose the hidden and concealment condition because they are in the range of the scenario's NVR. 7-1 to 6, the Aerosan becomes immobilized. 6 in the 2 firepower column is a pin test check on the transported units, with the immediate consequence of the Soviets losing their concealment. 11. The leader becomes pinned. The half squads pass. Let's move on to the Soviet units that move around board 26. The first unit strays after spending 4 movement factors and will move towards position to using the last 2 movement factors to advance to hexes. The second and third units continue without getting stray. The fourth unit goes astray after using 2 movement factors and will use the 4 movement factors towards position 5. The 5th unit progresses without problems, and the 6th unit goes astray using 2 movement factors in direction 2. The first Combat Aerosan goes astray after using 4 movement points and will use the remaining 26 movement points to move in the direction corresponding to number 4. Since we have a double 4, the so-called involuntary fire, jitter fire, may occur. Since the result of the dice is 8, which in the involuntary fire table implies that the unit that moves makes the involuntary fire if it is not cloaked, stealthy or normal. Since this unit is normal, the involuntary fire does not occur and the Aerosan will move. To change direction to continue the astray, this Aerosan will use movement points to stop, restart and change the Aerosan's arc of coverage so that it can move in the correct direction, using 3 movement points to perform this initial maneuver. This Aerosan, upon entering the hex with the Soviet unit in good order at 26B8, should have stopped moving astray and could continue its movement without needing to roll any dice to evaluate new astrays in the desired direction. The second Aerosan goes astray after using 8 movement points and will move towards number 6 until hex 26G10, which is the limit of the scenario, stops moving and becomes temporarily immobilized, TI. And the third Combat Aerosan goes astray after using only 6 movement points. It will move in the direction equivalent to the number 6 and becomes TI in hex 26G10. So far, 100% of the Aerosans have gone astray, which highlights the risks of moving at night and makes us wonder if we shouldn't have launched starshells to try to move more safely, even at the risk of losing the cloaking or concealment markers. The 3 transport Aerosans simply enter the board, ending their movement there. The skiing unit in 26G2 goes astray since the first roll of the dice, it goes astray towards position 4. In hex 27G10 it enters the line of sight of an enemy unit in good order in 27K8, and since one of the conditions to stop the astray is to approach enemy units in good order, it stops in this hex, ending its movement. In fact, the units in a stray position should not move towards enemy units in good order, which is not the case anyway. Unit in 26G4 moves and enters the hex with Finnish units hidden in 26J3, and since this marker is a dummy, while the Finns have real units, this Soviet marker is eliminated from the scenario. Soviet unit in 26G6 goes astray on the first roll of the dice and will go astray towards 4, ending its movement in 27G10. Unit in 26G8 moves to M5. In this hex it suffers an attack from the Finns in 26L2, who give up the cloaking marker. This attack will be carried out with the squad's firepower, with 5 firepower reduced by half to firepower because the Soviets are under the cloaking marker. The Finns lose the cloaking marker. The modifiers will be -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, nighttime hindrance. 4 -1, 3, 1 morale check. And the Soviet sniper can be activated, which Jim forgets to process, attention Jim. With this result, the Soviets lose their cloaking. 3. The squad passes. Soviet unit at 26G7 moves without straying to L4. In this hex, the Finnish units at 26L3 attack, which give up their cloaking condition. This attack will have 5 firepower, doubled because it is a point-blank shot, held by the Soviet cloaking. The modifiers will be -2, FFMO, FFNAM, +1, hindrance due to night conditions, so an attack with 4 firepower -1. 3-1, 2, reduction due to casualty of one of the squads to be chosen randomly, followed by 2 morale checks. The Soviets lose the cloaking marker. With one of the squads reduced to half squad, we will proceed to the 2 morale check. 10 + 2, 12, the squad breaks. 6 + 2, 8, the half squad is pinned. The next Soviet unit is stray after moving to 26 G4 and will move towards position 6 direction. During the movement it enters hex 26 I5 occupied by a Finnish dummy who is eliminated, heading to K6. Defensive fire phase. The units in 26 L3 fire on the Soviets in the adjacent hex L4 with half firepower, 2.5 subsequent final fire. This attack will be with 2 firepower doubled to 4 for being fired at point-blank range. The modifier will be +1 for night conditions. 6 + 1, 7, 1 pin test check that Jim considers as 1 morale check. The half squad breaks. The squad does not break again. The Finns make an illegal shot from hex 26 L1 on the Soviets in M5 with 6 firepower +1, night condition. 12. The Soviet squad is not affected, and the machine gun becomes non-functional. Advancing fire phase. The Soviets in 26 M5 fire with 4 firepower, 6 firepower reduced by half, advancing fire increased by 1 to 4 firepower. The modifier +1 for night hindrance will not occur because the Finns are 1 level above the Soviets. 9 is a miss, and the Finns who were attacked gain freedom of movement. At this point, the markers related to the gun flash from the shots should be removed, which we will do later. Rout phase. The broken units at 26 L4 take off their skis and move in low crawl to L5. Advance phase. As the most significant movement in this phase, the Soviet cloaking unit at 26 K4, where the leader 9-1 is, moves to L5. The rest of the Soviet units move towards the Finns. Close combat phase. No actions. Rally phase. Finns turn 2. Wind change, 2, 3. No wind or night vision range, NVR, change. Attempt to restore light machine gun function at 26 L2. A roll of 1 restores, 6 permanently breaks the machine gun and is eliminated from the game. 6. The machine gun is eliminated. Leader attempts 9-1 to restore morale of units with broken morale at 26 L5. Leader loses cloaking. 10-1, 9. The squad does not restore morale, and since the dice result is higher than the squad's morale, the DN marker remains. 4-1, leader, +4, DN marker, is 7, and the half squad restores morale. Prep fire phase. The Finns will attempt to launch Starshell. The squad at 26 L3 will attempt to launch a Starshell at L6 from 3 hexes away, needing to or less to succeed. 4. Unsuccessful. Squad at 27 K7 will attempt to launch a Starshell at H8. 2. Successful. And let's see where this Starshell will move and be placed. Colored die 3, direction, colored die 5, distance, and the Starshell will be deposited at 27 C6. The Finnish squad at 27K7 will fire with the anti-tank rifle at the immobilized Aerosan at 27L44 hexes away. At this distance, the number needed to hit the Aerosan is 10, vehicle target type. The modifiers will be -1, Aerosan size, small target, +1, night hindrance. 7. The Aerosan is hit. The basic number needed to affect the Aerosan will be 6 or less, with the modifier of +1 because the rifle is smaller than 25 mm for shots at a distance of 3 to 6 hexes. Double 3 + 1, 7, and the Aerosan is not affected because with this shot in the hull it would be immobilized, which already happened in the previous phase. Movement phase. As there was already an attack on one of the Finnish units in the previous turn, the best Finnish leader, 9-1, will be able to try to gain the freedom of movement that will happen if the roll of a dice results in a number less than the ELR of the Finns in this scenario, that is 3. 6. The Finns do not gain freedom of movement, should have rolled only one die. The squad at 26L3 moves to L2. Defensive fire phase. The two Huff squads at 27L4 will fire on the Finns at K8. They will fire with 4 firepower reduced by half because they are beyond the ideal firing range of these units, 2 hexes, with the modifier of +1, height advantage. 7 + 1, 8, without success. Advancing fire phase. The Finnish squad at 26L4 fires on the Soviet squad at M5 using assault fire, with 4 firepower +1, night hindrance. 9 + 1, 10, without success. The gunflash markers are eliminated at the end of the advancing fire phase. Rout phase. No actions. Advance phase. The Finnish squad at 26L2 moves to M2. Close combat phase. The illumination caused by the starshell is eliminated. None of the units without a concealment marker qualify to gain this marker. We move on to the rally phase, Soviet turn 3. With this, we end this episode, and we will see you in the third turn of this battle. See you soon. Namaste.